We heard about fairs before, obviously. The field hospital that Dad operated was built on the fairgrounds. But outside of a few stories and a few old pictures from before the days of the war, neither Valeska nor I had ever seen a fair before. The Phantom Fairgrounds we saw was like every story we heard, but it was also very different from every story that we had seen before. There were vendors selling food, but the food was made to look horrifying, or the games that could be played were just a little off, throwing skulls into bottles, throwing axes against targets, or a large pit with logs and rocks that were able to be thrown into a fire pit. And then there were the people wandering around the fairgrounds, some helping set up tents, stands, raking leaves into big piles, or pushing rocks out of the walkways. The people were not normal people. Some of them looked normal, others looked a little off. A carny with two different colored eyes, someone pushing rocks that had sharp teeth, and then there were those who didn't look like people. While I walked into the Phantom Fairgrounds, I stepped carefully. Everyone felt scary. Everyone felt like they were staring at me, and I was afraid I would do something that would make everyone angry at me, or worse, want to hurt me. But Valeska lit up in a way I never saw him light up before. It was like he was among friends or people familiar with him. The way he moved forward and with enthusiasm was not something I even knew Valeska was capable of as I followed him. One of the first stops we made was at a booth that had an airsoft gun that could shoot balls of paint. The worker was setting up targets in the booth when she turned around, and my breath froze in my lungs when I saw her face. The right half of her face was normal, pale maybe, but normal, long dark hair, red lipstick on her lips, and even shiny eyeshadow on her eyelid. Then the left half of her face was completely skeletal, with no flesh at all. Her socket was empty, with a lit tea candle inside, replacing her missing eye. Her exposed teeth had a thin veneer of gold, with carvings of waves and boats in the veneer. On her cheekbones and foreheads were colored gems carved into her bone, reflecting the light of the night, but with the gems flush with her skull. As we approached, she smiled with her human lips, while Valeska spoke. "I love your gems, they look gorgeous," Valeska said, as her human lips smiled wider, and she looked us both over. "I see. We have a few early bird helpers. What do you think of my booth?" she said as she stepped aside to let us look at the target. They were square-painted plywood. I could see a pumpkin-headed scarecrow holding a bag of candy, a smiling witch with a big hat holding a broom, and behind them were two normal men. "Now tell me, children, what do you think?" the half-dead woman asked us as I spoke up. "I think it looks like fun. Do we get a prize for shooting the most targets?" I asked as the woman looked at us, and then back at her targets. "Right, you must be new to this, but I think it's fair to explain. You pick up the paintball gun and you fire the paintballs at the danger, but be careful not to hit the innocent ones. Do you know which is which?" she asked as I picked up the paintball gun. "I can see which is which," I said as I aimed at the two monsters, and I pulled the trigger. I had 4 shots before I ran out of paintballs, 2 at the witch and 2 at the scarecrow, the red marks staining their center mass. "I see. But does your brother want to play?" she said, offering a different gun to Valeska as he took it. He aimed carefully, and he also fired 4 times, his paintballs hitting the 2 targets painted like people, leaving 4 blue marks on them. "You hit the wrong targets," I told Valeska as he put down the gun. He scrunched up his face in confusion. "But I thought..." "Valeska, she said to shoot the monsters and not shoot the people. Surely that was clear?" "Nadya, Valeska, you need to learn to listen if you want to be accepted." I said as Valeska's shoulders slumped a little. The familiar slump of when he messed up and he was going to go quiet and withdraw into himself to try and make sure he didn't make the same mistake again. Sometimes he went quiet for a few minutes or a few hours, but eventually he would be back to his old self in no time. Well, we have a winner. I know it's just a test, but I think it's only fair to give a prize out for being such good playtesters, the woman said as she grabbed a backpack with a black cat on the back, a backpack that would be far nicer than anything I had back home. As she brought the backpack over, I reached out for it, but I saw her lips half frown. The prize isn't for you. Valeska was the one who hit the targets, and he's the one who avoided the innocents, she said as she handed the bag to Valeska, who smiled a little more at being given a prize. But you said to shoot the monsters and avoid the people, I said as I pointed at the targets as the woman glanced at the targets, and she shook her head as she explained. No, I said shoot the danger and avoid shooting the innocent ones. I even asked if you knew which was which. You said you did, the woman said, like that explanation was enough. But the monsters are clearly a threat, I said, pointing at the targets while Valeska whispered to me. Nadya, look at the targets. Really look at them, Valeska advised while I looked closer at the targets. The scarecrow was smiling. It was holding a candy bag. The witch was smiling and holding a broom. Behind them were two people, a man and a woman. The man held an axe in his hands, and his face was furious, like all of the hate in the world were in his eyes. The woman held a long knife, and her eyes were wild, and her mouth stuck in a grim line. I don't see what you're seeing, I told Valeska as he shook his head, and the woman simply shrugged. It's okay, Nadya. Just accept that you need to listen, the woman said as I felt a bolt of anger shoot through my heart. How dare this monster tell me that I need to listen? Then I felt Valeska's hand on my shoulder, and my mood cooled a little. Thank you, Hel, for the backpack and letting us play. We're looking for Lycone. Do you know where they might be? He asked as she looked around, and she pointed towards the other stands. Last I saw, he was wandering around the petting zoo. Don't be afraid to check out the other stands. There's lots of performances, games, tricks, and treats for you to enjoy, she said as Valeska smiled as he led me away from the stall. How did you get her name? I asked as he pointed at the sign over the stall. It said, Hel's Dead Shot. How did I miss that? I asked as we continued. I think it's like the targets. You were only looking at one part and you didn't see everything. Things are different here. Some of the details that are important at home aren't important here, and some of the details that aren't important at home are important here. The details that I always noticed mean big things here, he said as he pointed at a stall where a man in a red and white pinstripe suit was setting up glass bottles in a pyramid. I didn't know what he was pointing at, even when I tried looking very hard. The glass bottles were clear with a light blue. The back of the booth was painted with a target. The man looked completely normal. His eyes were a bit bored. The sign simply said, Bottle Toss, a game so simple even I couldn't get it wrong. He even had a few stacked balls ready to be thrown, and a sign that said it cost 1 forint to play, which was pretty cheap all things considered. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? I asked as Valeska looked more frustrated with me. The look on his face was familiar, the same look that I could see on Mom's face when she was trying to explain something to Valeska, and he just wouldn't understand, especially when she didn't know what words would help him understand, a look that I knew I had on my face many times. Now that I was the one facing it, I couldn't help but feel more frustrated with him. Why couldn't he just tell me the answer instead of trying to make me figure it out myself? Look at what's different from his stall and the stall next to him, Valeska said as I turned to the stall next to the bottle toss. The next stall had balloons dangling on the back of the wall. That carny wore all black and only had one eye in the middle of his head. He had darts ready to be thrown, and he had stuffed animals hanging from the roof of his booth. Little stuffed animals that were barely bigger than my hand. The sign advertised it as a dart toss. Is it because the first stall is a monster? Is that why you don't like him, because he's human? I asked Valeska as he shook his head. Just because he looks human doesn't make him human, but no, that isn't it. It isn't something esoteric. It's something you can see if you pay attention, but I don't think it's obvious to you like it's obvious to me. Is that what it's like? He asked as I only nodded, as he finally pointed at the sign, saying the bottle toss was one for rent. That is the only stall that is charging money to play. It's also the only stall that has no prizes. If you go to that stall, you will pay to play the game, and you can win nothing, he said as I looked at it. He can't do that, and yet he is. It isn't honest. He isn't charging when he says it's free. He isn't saying he has prizes when he doesn't. What part of that isn't not honest? Maybe he does have a prize, but it's more valuable than the others? I asked as Valeska sighed. That isn't how it works here. You know how it works for you back home, but here it doesn't work the same way, he said as we continued, and we found another stall with a very unusual game. The man in the stall was tall, dark, and older than any man I had seen before. His cane had a dog's head carved into it. The way he moved, it was like the cane pulled him, and he was holding it back. His white beard trimmed well. His large top hat and dark suit were so well made that even the princes of Marcomannia would be jealous of him. In front of him were 5 different wallets of different color and different quality. Above him hung flowers and drying herbs. The sign on the back said, Papa's Wallet Game. Welcome to my humble stall, children. This game has a winner every time. Usually, me. The old man said with a chuckle, as Valeska laughed as well. I didn't laugh. Now, this game here is simple. Guess which wallet here is my wallet. Every wallet here contains something. My wallet contains the most valuable prize, the old man said as I looked over the wallets. It seemed easy enough, but I still hesitated, so I decided to ask. So I just pick a wallet and I get to keep the wallet? I asked the old man, who chuckled like I said something funny. You get to keep what's inside of the wallet. I'm afraid I need to keep the wallets for others to play, he said as he tapped his cane 4 times on the ground. And none of the wallets contain nothing, I asked. Everything contains nothing. Nothing contains anything. Anything contains everything. But sweetheart, if you're asking if the prize inside of the wallet is non-physical, I can promise you that the prizes are physical and can be carried. I can also promise that they are all valuable, although their values are measured in different ways. What do you mean by that? If you had a kilogram of copper coins and a kilogram of bills, which pile weighs more? They weigh the same. Excellent. But which one of the piles is worth more? The bills. Now, if you value the piles by weight, then the copper coins is equal value. And if you value money, then the bills are more valuable. But both have value, he said as I thought it over, digesting it in my mind, but figuring I had the answer. Can I ask for a clue on which wallet is yours? Yes. Look at me. Look at where I stand. Look at what I value, and you will know which wallet is mine and what it is I value the most, the old man said as I looked it over. The stall was in the middle of where 4 different paths of the fairgrounds met, a sort of roundabout between the cardinal directions. He was dressed in a very nice and very comfortable suit. His hat on his head had traces of purple filigree, but then for a moment he was not wearing a suit. He was wearing a long white robe with a straw hat on his head. He stood only with the help of a crutch, but his smiling face remained. I could see flowers hanging from the roof of the stall, a candy bowl within easy reach of him, small candy within wax paper that was easy for him to eat and enjoy, a bottle of dark rum with an old clay shot glass next to it. Then he was once again in his fancy suit with the expensive hat. I had my answer. I could see a worn-down pink wallet, a green wallet with a golden dollar sign on it, a polka dot white and black wallet, a wallet of black leather, and finally, a purple leather wallet with actual gold inlaid in it. I think this is your wallet, I said, grabbing the expensive purple leather. The gold and the purple told me the wallet was expensive. A man in such a fancy suit was clearly someone who was going to value money and wealth the most. I opened the wallet to see that it indeed had money in it. 100,000 forint in 5,000 forint bills. I eagerly grabbed the red prints as I looked them over. Sure enough, they were real. Well, princess, I see you made your choice, and that is no small prize you selected. But tell me, prince, which wallet do you think is mine? He asked as Valeska grabbed the pink wallet as he opened it. Inside of the wallet was no money, no bills. The only thing inside was a single folded photograph. Well, maybe next time, Valeska, I told him as I counted the money in my hands again, as I thought about what I could buy with this. I could buy actual candy from one of the soldiers, or I could even buy a new dress or two for myself, and have enough left over to buy new blankets. As I tucked the bills into my socks, as Valeska unfolded the photo. As he did, I could see him tear up as he looked up at the old man. Thank you. Thank you so much, he said as I peeked at his prize, trying to figure out what it was that made my brother cry. I could see the folded photograph was a picture of the family together. Mom and Dad were standing on the steps of the church, both of them holding small infants in their arms, holding us. A picture I never knew was taken, a memory I didn't know was lost, not until it was in Valeska's hands. The old man offered us both candy as we snacked on them, and we kept walking towards the petting zoo. At one of the stalls, there was a big cauldron that had cold smoke billow out of it, as a headless man in black and red armor offered us drinks from the cauldron, offered in wax cups. Valeska took both cups eagerly as he held one out to me. As I glanced inside of it, it looked like normal apple cider, and even smelled like it, but I couldn't figure out why it was making cold smoke inside of the cauldron. No magic needed for that. There's water and dry ice inside of the cauldron, and then a bowl on top of the water and dry ice where the apple cider is kept. It makes it spooky, but it's harmless, Valeska said as he drank it, and I drank it as well. Sure enough, it was apple cider, delicious and normal as always. As we got closer to the petting zoo, we could smell the animals before we could see them. And then, when we finally saw the petting zoo, we could see the many animals in the zoo. We could see jackalopes hopping around, rubbing their antlers against the wooden fence, sheep with black wool happily bleating, a goat that walked on 2 legs, and then in one corner of the petting zoo, we could see a fenced-off section with a very large dog inside. A large dog that had the name Lycon written on a fence over its section. So, do we just head inside and put the key on his collar? I asked, seeing that he had a collar with a hook on it that could fit the key we were given. But when I looked into the dog's eyes, the dog looked back, and it didn't feel like it liked me. I think we have to let the dog come to us. We shouldn't be chasing the dog, Valeska said as he stepped inside of the fenced area as he sat down, the dog watching him from the distance. Let the dog get close to us. If we try to chase the dog, he'll keep running, and he won't let us give him the key. We can still wear him down as long as we keep walking, I suggested as Valeska shook his head. That won't make him like us. If you have to wear someone down to make them do what you want, then they aren't doing so willingly. That sounds like something that Bathory would do, not something I would do, he said as he continued to wait, as the dog finally began to get closer and closer to him. Now Lycon was curious, sniffing and getting more curious, while Valeska remained still as the dog got closer. Then finally he was in arm's reach. I expected Valeska to put the key on his collar immediately. Instead, he let the dog sniff him. Then he offered his hand to the dog as he pet Lycon. After a few pets, he slipped the key on Lycon's collar, continuing to pet the dog before he finally stood, and he left the pen. The large gray dog now curling up to sleep inside, while Valeska left with me. He looked around us in awe, while I glanced around, not sure what he was seeing. This place, I can help people in places like this, Valeska said as he glanced around at the others, who were finishing their setup of the Phantom Fairgrounds. Valeska, this place, it isn't right. It feels like everything I do is wrong. I need someone to explain everything to me, and even when I think I understand something, I only realize afterwards that I'm wrong. How can you help people in a place like this? I asked, only for Valeska to look at me, and I realized what I was saying. Oh. Yeah. Back home, I had to hide my gift. I have to pretend that I don't see anything when I do. I always have to look the other way when the quiet man visits. I have to always watch out for the Civil Legion. The only way that I can help people is by pretending that I can't. Nadya, you can help people in the hospital. You can help people in the apartment. You can help people in the city. If I go back, I'll spend the rest of my life never being able to help people, because if I tried, I'd be taken away. Here, I don't have to explain myself constantly. I can learn more about the world. I can help those that come to visit, Valeska said as I turned to him, then back to the gate that led out of the fairgrounds. Valeska, this world isn't real. The real world isn't like this. The real world. A world where candy doesn't exist except as a story from our great-grandparents. A world where games are too dangerous because it might attract the attention of the Civil Legion. A world where everyone dies randomly and with no hope for survival. And you can't even mourn those who died. A world where if someone hates you, they kill you. A world where if someone loves you, they still kill you. A world that pretends that magic doesn't exist. A world where everyone wears a mask and everyone pretends that they aren't hurt because they fear more pain. The pumpkin house doesn't pretend the world out there isn't real, but the world out there acts like places like the pumpkin house aren't real. Nadya, this world is very real. The people here are very real. The visitors here are very real. I can be a hero here, just like you are a hero out there. Valeska, are you sure? I asked, and he nodded. I thought about staying with him. I thought about leaving Markomania behind, but I knew I couldn't be happy living here forever. Just like how Valeska was always out of place in the exoteric world, I would always be out of place in an esoteric one. So I turned from Valeska, and for the first time in our lives, we walked down different paths as I made my way to the gates, stepping beyond the pumpkin house. When I left through the gates, I woke up in the field hospital, a light in my eyes as the nurse was bringing my heart back to a normal rhythm. Valeska laid in a bed next to mine, his heart no longer beating as the nurses finally declared time of death. I tried to speak, only to find that I couldn't talk. Not that night, at least. All I could do was watch as the nurses ran around me, trying to keep me and others alive. Eventually, I learned from the snippets of conversation that a bomb was dropped in the apartment building. And while it didn't go off, it crushed my parents, and the spray of splinters put me and Valeska into a near-death state. We were brought to the field hospital by Baba Yaga, our hearts stopping and restarting, until finally the nurses could stabilize me. They weren't able to stabilize Valeska, although I'm not sure if they tried to save him as hard as they tried to save me. I was still in the hospital bed, still healing from the wounds, when we got the news from the palace. On November 11th, at about 11 a.m., the tyrant was assassinated by his heir, and now an armistice was declared as the rest of the Central Cabal also declared a ceasefire, scared to keep fighting when they realized they would be fighting alone. That night, for the first time in my life, where I slept without the sound of planes or artillery. When I finally recovered enough to head home, there wasn't anything I could salvage. Most of the apartment was destroyed in the attack. Anything that looters couldn't take was destroyed by the elements. Nothing left I could take with me except the clothes on my back. I had no relatives left in Markomania, but since I didn't want to stay in a Bathory-ran orphanage, I contacted my aunt in Kimru, who said I could stay with her. So, as difficult as it was to leave Markomania, at the same time, I was leaving nothing behind. I had my memories with me, and a future to look forward to in Kimru. And while I wanted to believe that my time in the pumpkin house was a dream, or a hallucination, or at least not real, I had one big piece of evidence that told me the pumpkin house was real, and that Valeska was still there. When I came to, and I finally recovered enough to move, I found 300,000 for rent in my sock, enough money to bring me to a new life, and all I could hope was that my brother still remembered me next time I visited him. My first few weeks in the pumpkin house were the best of my life. I learned more about my gift and the esoteric world than I ever did in my years in Markomania. I had my room in the house, and the house always felt like it was shifting. The rooms were always where I could reach them with ease, and I could always find who or what I was looking for without trying too hard or too long. At first, Adansi had my role in the house to explain the rules and how things worked to the visitors. Every time something that felt obvious to me wasn't obvious to them for some strange reason, I would just have to explain it to them. Adansi said it was because I was already half in anyways, and that gave me insight in areas others didn't have. So I would try other roles, running a stall, tour guide, docent to the gates, even acted as a lore keeper once or twice. But it never worked quite as well as just explaining the how and why of things. As my gift developed, I made my way up, eventually giving myself the honor of calling myself a harbinger, warning the guests not just of their own dangers they faced in the house, but also the dangers they faced outside of the house as well. There, I had to learn how to see beyond sight, to know beyond knowing, and to warn beyond warning, to understand both the challenges of the pumpkin house and the challenges inside of their hearts. I believe I have helped many, but even if I miss Nadya sometimes, I feel like I am home and I cannot wait to see her again. Unfairly laid to rest, blanketed by the clammy, crumbling earth, our fingers intertwined, even in death, our hearts still beat as one. We await our heroine, our breathing non-existent, as the Hydra listens closely, even in slumber. My sister, often right, leads the way, but in the horizon, where sun meets the clouds, the celestial ritual of day transforming into night, the bell remains still, the way out is near.